my name's Hannah and I'm from ProCandleSupply.com. Today I'm going to show you how to make candles with this Paraffin Soy wax blend made by Blended Waxes. It's called BW-910 and you can order it now as well as all the supplies you need to make candles at ProCandleSupply.com. First, I want to give a short rundown on the details of this new BW-910 wax that we're now distributing, and then we'll make a candle step by step with it. BW-910, it's a high quality wax I've been working with and testing the past couple months. And I really think it's going to help with some problems for both beginner candle makers and seasoned candle makers that are tired of dealing with a lot of the inconsistencies and issues that come up when making soy candles with 100% soy wax. Here are some of my reasonings. BW-910 is great for beginners because it's going to be easier right off the bat to pour and get a nice smooth topped candle, and also get a really good hot throw. For seasoned candle makers, it can help eliminate some of the additional steps you take to perfect your 100% soy wax candles, such as having random sinkholes and crater tops. Since this wax has paraffin in it, it's going to be easier to achieve much more vibrant colors. In addition to that, you shouldn't have to worry about frosting issues that can appear with 100% soy wax. Ultimately, I feel that no matter what your stance is on soy or paraffin, you should at least try using this wax once because you'll like how easy it is to work with compared to 100% soy waxes if that's what you've used in the past. So let's get into the details on the BW-910. It's a pre-blended paraffin and soy wax, so you don't have to stock two waxes and blend yourself. In the past, I've spoken with customers that have 100% soy wax and they don't like all the characteristics of it, so they blend other waxes with it, but because this is pre-blended, it's no longer necessary. You're also going to get nice, bright, vibrant colors, and you won't have to worry as much about frosting, like I mentioned before. The BW-910 is very easy to work with, and you just add your fragrance and candle dye. There's no additional additives that are needed. It's great for container candles and tea light candles. It comes in slab form, like this, but it's really easy to cut with our soap cutters. It's firm enough to move around and handle easily, but soft enough to cut with no problems. Fragrance load. For the max fragrance load, the manufacturer states you can add up to 10% fragrance. I tested it with several fragrances of ours at 10% and they worked well and there wasn't any sweating or leakage. My preferred wick series to use with this wax is the CD series wicks, based on the testing that I did. And the melt point is 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Basically, when I tested the wax, I heated the BW-910 up to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. I then added my fragrance oil and then the candle dye. I mixed it well and allowed it to cool down to 160 degrees. At that point, I then poured into my preheated and pre-wicked candle jars. The manufacturer specs show to pour your mixture into your jars between 150 and 170 degrees Fahrenheit. But I found the optimal pour temperature for the best glass adhesion and the smoothest tops to be around 160 degrees. It's also important to note that my pouring room was around 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm also in a low humidity area, so if you are in a high humidity area, your ideal temperatures may vary. Many large candle manufacturers preheat their jars, especially if they are using clear candle jars. If you're using a colored jar, then it's not a big deal. But if you're using a clear jar and you're having issues with glass adhesion or wet spots, then this is something that you may want to look into. Now, what most candle makers want to know is what's up with the hot and cold throw of this wax. I'm happy to report that it has a very strong cold throw and hot throw after waiting a minimum of 72 hours. I feel like a fragrance reporter. Today's forecast is a high of 72 with signs of a strong fragrance throw. And if you wait longer and let the candles cure for 10 to 14 days, you're going to get the best hot throw. I think that about sums up the basic details on the wax. If you want any additional details, send me a message using the contact form on my website, ProCandleSupply.com. Before I ramble on forever, let's go ahead and get started making some candles using this wax. First things first, let's talk about what you're going to need. First is a heat source. You can use a wax melter, a hot plate, or a double boiler method. If you use a hot plate, you want to make sure you consistently stir your wax and monitor the temperature so that you don't burn it. A double boiler is also pretty easy. If you're not familiar with a double boiler method, all you do is heat up some water in a pot, then you place your wax pitcher inside of the warm water and stir the wax as it melts, always monitoring the temperature of the wax while it's melting. Today, however, I'm just going to be using my wax melter because I have a ginormous one next to me. You're also going to need a kitchen scale, of some type. It doesn't have to be a fancy one, but you have to be able to weigh by weight, not by volume, because when making candles, you always want to measure by weight. If you measure by volume, you're going to run into a lot of problems because fragrance oils have a lot of different densities. You don't use liquid measuring cups. That is a huge mistake that I get questions about all the time. By weight, not by volume. You'll need a stirring utensil, a pour pitcher to mix and pour your wax, a calculator is always your friend, candle fragrance of your choice, candle dye if you want to color your candles, containers. I'm using our amber 9-ounce straight-sided glass jars. We have a boatload of these right now, so if you want to check them out, go to procandlesupply.com. You'll also need wicks. I'm using our CD series today. Our wick centers will keep your wicks straight when they're inside the jars. Wick stickers to attach to the bottom of your tabs on your wicks, which will secure your wicks to the bottom of the jars. A thermometer, and then lastly, and most importantly, your candle wax. I know I'm gonna get a question about wick size, so I'll go ahead and address that now. The size of your wicks are going to depend on several factors. In this case, with the BW-910, I know what wax I'm using, but if you're using a different container or fragrance amount or adding different color, any of these variables, if they change, they can affect the size wick. So this is something that requires some testing and experimenting. Unfortunately, it's one of the things you just have to get down when you're making a candle, and I cover this in detail in another video or two on our channel. You can check it out where I talk about finding the right wick size and doing burn tests with different size wicks. If you have any additional questions, send me a message on our website and I'll try to do everything I can to help. Today I'm going to be making 4 candles with the BW-910. I'm using a 9% fragrance load. In some previous videos, I've used 6% or approximately 6% fragrance load, which is 1 ounce of fragrance per 1 pound of wax. I've used this example in the past because it's just easy to learn that way. You just dump 1 ounce into 1 pound. However, I like to use 9% because it gives a stronger hot and cold throw. So today we're calculating our fragrance based on 9%. Each one of these amber jars holds approximately 7 ounces by weight of wax. It seems that a lot of people struggle with math, so I'm going to give you the simplest and easiest formula to calculate how much wax and fragrance you're going to need to make these candles. This formula will give you the right percentage of fragrance, but you'll always end up with a little more finished wax mixture than you need. However, I think it's much easier to be able to make your candles the right way and end up with a little extra product than to incorrectly calculate the formula and end up with a huge mess and wasted materials. So, 4 candles with 7 ounces of wax in each candle. That's 4 times 7, and that equals 28 ounces by weight of wax. And this may seem like a silly question, but I have gotten it in the past. Your wax is the same weight melted or unmelted. So measure out 28 ounces of wax and heat your wax up to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm gonna cut up my wax now. Took my scale, turned it on, made sure it was ounces, made sure the pitcher was on, it's tared out, it reads 0. It's ready for me to place some wax in it. Let's see, 28 ounces. Okay, I'm at 28 ounces. This is when you would melt your wax to 185 degrees Fahrenheit using one of the methods I talked about earlier in the video. Always make sure to never leave your wax or your heat source unattended and always monitor your wax while you're heating. Now I have 28 ounces of wax heated to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you reach that temperature, you want to remove your wax from your heat source, and now it's time to add the fragrance. As I mentioned earlier, I'm using 9% fragrance. So to calculate how much fragrance I need to do the following basic calculation. You take the amount of wax that you have by weight, which is 28 ounces in this case, and multiply by 9%, which is 0.09 in decimal form. This will give you the number of ounces by weight of fragrance oil that you need to weigh out and add in order to achieve a 9% fragrance load. So, very slowly, 28 ounces of wax times 0.09 equals 2.52 ounces by weight of fragrance oil. So now that you know how much fragrance you need, you take your scale. You're going to turn it on. You're going to make sure that the units are in OZ weight, ounces weight. You're going to want to hit tare so that it reads 0 ounces. Then place your pitcher of wax on the scale. Hit tare one more time so that it once again reads 0 ounces. Then you're going to take your fragrance and pour in 2.52 ounces of fragrance oil. Once the fragrance is added, you're going to stir very well. Good time to note, if you want to add candle dye, this is when you would add your candle dye, right after you add your fragrance. I added 5 to 7 drops per pound when I was testing and was getting really good results. Make sure you're using candle dye only. It's made for candles. You should not be using something that's not made for candles because you run the risk of clogging up the wick and causing burn issue problems. So stick to the colors that say made for candle making. So now that you've added your fragrance and or candle dye, you want to allow it to cool to around 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So I've just set my pitcher off to the side. I'm gonna let it chill out, cool down to 160 degrees. Now is a good time while it cools to do your next step, which is taking your glass jars or your containers and your wicks and placing a wick sticker on the bottom of each wick. You just wanna center the wick sticker right on the bottom of the wick. So now you take off the other side of the wick sticker and you're going to secure the wicks to the center of each jar, pressing firmly down on the wick tab. As you can see that's the jar. Do that for each jar. And now, once your wicks are secured to each of your jars, you can add your wick center on top of each jar so that the wick stays nice and centered while it cools. Again, this is a preference. If you'd like, you can pour the wax into the jars and then place the wick centers on. That's totally up to you. I like to try to do things while I'm waiting. The wick centers just slide down the wick and then you place it in the little secure notch in the wick center. Okay, so once the wax mixture has cooled to 160 degrees Fahrenheit, I just take my wax pitcher and then I'm going to stir a few times and then I'm going to pour the wax mixture into each jar very carefully. And that's it. Now you just wait and let the candles cool and cure for 72 hours. You can also take off the wick centers after 72 hours and you want to trim your wicks to about 1/4 inch. And after that, you're ready to burn and enjoy your nice handmade candles. It's a great pre-blended soy and paraffin blend for containers and tea lights. If you're interested in learning more, make sure you check out our website, procandlesupply.com, where you can buy the BW-910 as well as all of these supplies to make your own candles right at home. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next video because we also have the BW-921. So get ready. It's a great pillar blend. Thanks so much. Bye.